is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you today. We're mainly going to be talking about some of the conditions that are going to be going on across much of the Atlantic. As you saw in the title and the thumbnail, we're not really looking at that much tropical development in the near future. However, there are a couple of things that we still need to talk about. For starters, there's things still going on in the Eastern Pacific that we're going to be paying attention to for the next little while. We're also going to be watching the fluctuating convection and the fluctuating conditions in the Atlantic to kind of give an indicator of when the potential first development could occur. Also, we have some more GFS being GFS stuff. So let's go ahead and dive right into it right here. So here's the situation that we have first in the Eastern Pacific. We're going to briefly go over this. We have Tropical Storm Barbara, which is rapidly weakening. We have Tropical Storm Cosme, which is at 65 miles per hour. And we have this area of interest that has a 1080 tag on it. So let's go ahead and start with Tropical Storm Barbara, then Cosme, then get to the area of interest. Barbara is going to be weakening in the next 24 hours based on what we are seeing both on the cone and in the public advisory right here. So here's what we have going on. Its current location is 19.9 degrees north, 108.7 degrees west. Its maximum sustained winds are at 50 miles per hour. Its present movement is northwest at 9 miles per hour, and its minimum central pressure has risen to 1,001 millibars. And here is the discussion right here. Maximum sustained winds have decreased to 50 miles per hour. Continued weakening is forecast. Tropical storm force winds extend outward 60 miles from the center. And if we go ahead and take a quick look at the discussion very quickly, further weakening is expected through the period as the system continues to move over cooler water and into a more stable and dry surrounding environment. The official intensity forecast shows Barbara degrading into a remnant low in 24 hours and dissipating by Wednesday night. The NHC forecast intensity is based on the global models, so it's expected to get down to a tropical depression in the next 12 hours, and then a remnant low in the next 24, and then dissipate after that. So that's the situation we have with Barbara. This will likely be the last time we talk about it here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel, but shifting over, we're going to talk about Cosme now. And this is what we have going on right here with Tropical Storm Cosme. Currently, it's a 65 mile per hour tropical storm, expected to become extra tropical by tomorrow morning. So let's go ahead and quickly look at the public advisory. Here's the situation. We have its current location is 15.5 degrees north and 114.6 degrees west. Its maximum sustained winds are at 65 miles per hour. They have weakened down to expected to become post-tropical by Wednesday. It's moving at northwest at 3 miles per hour, and its minimum central pressure is 996 millibars. Tropical storm force winds extend outward 45 miles from the center. And taking a quick look at the discussion right now, moderate northeasterly shear appears to be displacing Cosme's deep convection to the southwestern quadrant of the circulation. Subjective and objective satellite estimates have begun to decrease, so that's why they dropped it to 65 miles per hour at this current point in time. And as you take a look at the forecast, it's expected to become post-tropical, and then a remnant low, and then dissipate in the next 3 days. And I do want to take a quick look at the archive very quickly, just to kind of look at the forecast advisory and the public advisory. Just to kind of take a quick glance on this. This did become a 70 mile per hour tropical storm. However, it then weakened down to hurricane strength this morning. So it did not quite get up to hurricane strength with Cosme right here, but we will continue to pay attention to it. And this is, but this will probably be one of the last times we do talk about both Barbara and Cosme here on the channel right now, as those are rapidly going to weaken. Barbara's going to dissipate in the next day. Cosme's going to be a post-tropical cyclone, so we'll probably briefly mention it again tomorrow and take a quick look at it, and then we're going to move on our merry way. So here's what we have going on. This is kind of the more main meat that we have in terms of development right now. A broad area of low pressure located several hundred miles south of the Gulf of Tehuantepec is producing disorganized shower and thunderstorm activity. Environmental conditions appear conducive for gradual development of the system, and a tropical depression is likely to form late this week or this weekend while moving generally west-northwestward in the eastern Pacific Ocean along the southwestern coast of Mexico. 10% chance in the next 48 hours, 80% in the next 7 days. So this is more of a long-term threat, and it's going to be a situation where the NHC is really confident that this system is going to develop. I believe we were at like 060 when we talked about it last time, and ultimately I was talking about how when you look at stuff like 060, 070, and 1080, that should tell you how confident the NHC is in terms of its tropical development, how confident they are that something is going to happen, and how confident they are of development, especially in a long-term scenario like this one. So that's what we have going on in the NHC. Let's go ahead now and shift over to satellite. All right, we're back at satellite, and we're going to go ahead and pivot over to the Eastern Pacific right now and take a quick gander. Here's what we have with Barbara rapidly weakening. A lot of the convection is just really choked out over the last 5 hours. Cosme is continuing to degrade, as well as more shear and drier air start to really impact these systems right here. However, looking at this area of interest right here, we are seeing more convection starting to bubble up and starting to fire off across in this region over here off the coast of Mexico. So you're going to want to pay attention to that as well. That is likely to develop, and we're going to want to monitor that convection and how it organizes going forward. It's pretty blobular right now. It's not really organized or anything like that. It's just a bunch of popcorning convection, which is pretty much convection goes up and then it goes down and then it just kind of does it sporadically and all of that stuff. Just kind of like how popcorn is generally when you heat it up in the microwave, how it just pops up and all of that stuff and all of that, and then kind of just giving that general look of it as well. Just kind of that just popping up and then weakening, popping up and weakening. So we're going to want to pay attention to that as well. Taking a quick look at the water vapor imagery as well. There is some dry air that's impacting this at the lower levels, both Barbara and Cosme over here. So we're going to want to pay attention to that as well. That's really what's choking out Barbara right now. It's really just kind of faded over the last 5 hours, especially. That convection is just weakening and weakening and weakening as it's moving closer to this dry air mass over here near Baja California. Cosme's more of a shear problem, although some dry air has gotten into the system last time I checked it. So we're going to want to pay attention to that as this becomes extra tropical. So yeah, and then you have this area of interest. First of all, yes, there is a pocket of dry air right now where this convection is, but that convection is kind of filling it out, and it's bringing more moisture and allowing more moisture to move through that region. So you're going to want to pay attention to that. Overall, it doesn't really have that many problems. It has really good warm water. It has plenty of wind shear to work with, a moist environment. So I would not be surprised if this becomes a hurricane at all based on what I've been seeing with the models and based on some analysis with the conditions. So that's kind of what we have going on in the Eastern Pacific. Moving over now, we're going to go ahead and talk about the Atlantic. Right now, we're going to go ahead and move back to our satellite imagery and head over there and kind of talk about a few things. So, like I said at the beginning, there's really not that much tropical development that's going to be expected in the immediate future unless you are someone that believes in the GFS, and we will get to that in a little bit. But ultimately, that doesn't mean that we can say, okay, video's not happening, we can't talk about anything, because there are some conditions you do want to talk about, and there are some conditions that, as a forecaster and as someone who does these kinds of videos, you want to highlight to your audience for them to pay attention to. And there are some conditions that we're going to be going over today, once again, like we've been doing over the last few videos, just to kind of give an idea of what's going on and give an idea of how things are going to ultimately pan out. So here's what we have going on. We're going to go ahead and start with the sea surface temperatures. We didn't get to this yesterday, but here's what we had with the SSTs. The SSTs have really warmed up over the last few days across the Gulf, across the Caribbean, and even in the Atlantic Basin along the Gulf Stream, we're seeing a lot warmer temperatures as well. So those are factors that you're going to want to pay attention to right here. Like, let me go ahead and give you an example of what we were potentially looking at before. So this is on Yoshi's website, and this is what we were seeing on June 6th of 2025. So this is only a few days ago. what we were seeing is we were seeing a lot of the 28 degrees Celsius or 82 degree Fahrenheit for those living on the Gulf Coast. And it was pretty much the main factor. You had some 27s and you had some 26s over here. And ultimately, you didn't have that, still had some warming and all of that, don't get me wrong. But ultimately, you had a lot of these 29s more in concentrated areas. And you didn't really have that much 30 degrees Celsius stuff. Look where we're at right now, ladies and gentlemen. Look where we're at right now, ladies and gentlemen. Boom. Look at this. The Gulf is starting to really warm up again. We're seeing 29 plus degrees Celsius waters across a lot, pretty much from the Louisiana coast. Like, this didn't pop up along the Louisiana coast until a couple of days ago, and we're already really starting to pipe up and really starting to warm up across a lot of these regions. And you're noticing the 30 degrees Celsius areas. Yes, they're still isolated in Cuba and Mexico over here, but you are noticing them starting to spread out a little bit more, as well as a few other areas in the main development region that we didn't see. The main MDR is also warming up quite a bit as well. So we're going to want to watch that, especially for going into late June and early July. Gulf Stream's also warming up significantly as well. We're up to 29 degrees Celsius in a few isolated areas in the Bahamas and in the Gulf Stream, and those warm waters continue to push further and further up to the north. That's a bit of a concern as well. It's not just with the Gulf Stream, it's with these warm waters as well. The 27 degrees Celsius line has now crossed in some areas into the subtropical Atlantic. So that's the situation that we're looking at right there. And you're going to want to pay attention to see how far north those SSTs ultimately go. And that's something we're going to want to pay attention to. And you're also looking at the water temperatures right now. Water temperatures are starting to surge again in the Gulf. We're already we're almost cracking 29 degrees Celsius. You could argue we're already there, 28.98 degrees Celsius and 29 degrees Celsius. That's the same difference pretty much. That's about 84 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you living along the Gulf Coast. That is a pretty excessive amount of warming we have seen, in a warming of about, I'd say, almost 3 degrees Celsius across an entire synoptic region over the last 40 days. That is pretty concerning to me. Like, let's say, for comparison, I brought this up on stream on Saturday night. Let's say you're sitting in your room and you start with a temperature about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And then as the day goes on, as body heat, all other stuff happen, your room temperature warms up to about 75 degrees. Take that 5-degree warm difference and place that across an entire body of water. And that's what you got right there, ladies and gentlemen. So it may not seem like a huge a temperature change or anything like that, but in the grand scheme of things, because water has a significantly higher specific heat content than air does, and the fact that it's over a much more massive area than a room is, that's why you're paying attention to it right there. So change like this may not seem like much to a lot of people, but it's a pretty big difference just based on oceans and based on the fact of how huge this is. Not only that, we're watching the ocean heat content as well. This has been surging quite a bit across the Gulf, the Caribbean, and even in parts of the MDR, we're seeing a bit of a surge as well. We're seeing a pretty significant surge. Heck, look at what we were seeing a couple of days ago. We were seeing a lot less OHC in parts of the Loop Current, in parts of the Northwestern Caribbean. Heck, even in the Western Gulf, we were seeing less OHC. Look at where we're at right now. Look at the difference, ladies and gentlemen. OHC has really increased in the loop current right here. Before, we were peaking at about 125 in a couple isolated spots and about 75 across some of the areas, especially this thin line right here. Now we're cracking 125 in a lot of areas. So we're seeing a pretty massive jump as these water temperatures are not only warming up, the warm water is going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper down. That's why you are seeing these OHC jumps right here. You're seeing more of this warm water dive further and further and further below the surface of the water. So that's something you're going to want to take into account. And one thing I do want to go ahead and show you, of at least according to what we're seeing with the European, is we're seeing some height anomalies. We're going to see more of a ridge pattern that starts to build up. Let's go ahead and pull up today's run and see what's going on. So you have this trough moving through the United States. Then you have a ridge pattern that's going to build up and over parts of the United States. And what that's going to do is it's also going to affect the Gulf, and it's going to bring warmer temperatures over there underneath that ridge. And that's going to accelerate the amount of warming we are seeing in the Gulf region right there. So it's things like that. We're seeing higher heights than usual. Higher heights over higher 500 millibar heights equal higher temperatures in general, and those higher temperatures are going to be what allows these waters to really warm up. And this isn't just like an isolated area. This is pretty consistent for roughly, actually, it's pretty consistent for almost the entire run right here. So you're really going to see those water temperatures really turn up in the Gulf, in the Caribbean, in the Atlantic Basin. Like this ridge pattern is showing a lot of warming potential across much of the tropics, and that is something you're going to want to pay attention to. As I've already said, the water temperature is already a constant. The question now is, how hot is it going to be, and how much energy are these tropical cyclones going to have when they do eventually organize and develop? So that's a condition that you're going to want to pay attention to. And looking at those 500 millibar heights, it doesn't really take a genius to understand why. So now let's go ahead and pull up the wind shear, looking at that, and then the anomalies. Wind shear is pretty ass across much of the Caribbean the Caribbean and the MDR. You're not going to see much tropical development with a wind shear pattern like this. However, you do need to pay attention to a couple of things. For starters, at the beginning of this run, look at how this is oriented. It's a lot more concentrated. It's a lot more compact. You're not seeing a lot of waves or anything like that. It's just a continuous flow of wind shear right here. But watch as things start to go on, especially as we go towards the later part of the run, where things become less compact and start to get more wavy across a lot of these regions. So look at this right now. So we gotta take a quick look at this. You're starting to notice how the shear, not just in the tropics but in the subtropics, gets a lot more wavy and fluctuates a lot more. Heck, the Europeans even showing periods where the wind shear starts to decrease by a considerable margin right here. And look at this, ladies and gentlemen. This is the latest from the European right here. You're starting to see a bit more of a wind shear collapse across portions of the Gulf and portions of the Caribbean. MDR starts to weaken quite a bit. Those are typically stuff we would see in mid-July, ladies and gentlemen. Like early to mid-July, those are the kind of patterns we would start to see. And you start to see more fluctuating around early July. This looks like more of a collapse a little bit. And this is more of a July pattern in June. And what that's telling me is that the wind shear that's going to be moving through here is, at least in terms of tropics, ahead of schedule. And that's pretty concerning because, yes, you may have a quiet June, and you might not see something until like the very end of it, if anything. But maybe July becomes more active. Maybe early August gets a lot more active. Maybe September. Oh, September's already given. It's going to be active regardless. But you see what I'm trying to do here. You see what I'm trying to show you, ladies and gentlemen. And taking a look at the averages right here, you are starting to see this reflect. You're starting to see below average shear in pockets right now. You're starting to see all those start to pop up. You're seeing more average shear pop up, and you're starting to see those more wavy returns as the shear fluctuates up and down, up and down, up and down. Now let's go ahead and show you the moisture content, because we are seeing more moisture as well across much of the MDR and those areas as well, despite the Sahara dust that's going on. Taking a quick look at what we were seeing, and we did talk about it yesterday, the lower wind shear returns definitely are going to impact the Sahara dust and how much gets picked up and brought into the Atlantic Ocean. And then you have a bit of a moisture surge, and then you have some more stuff that's going to be happening. And yes, you're seeing quite a lot of Sahara dust. It's not going to be particularly favorable for tropical development right now, but let's take a look at those anomalies, ladies and gentlemen, and take a quick gander at these. You're seeing the return right here, above average moisture across much of North Africa, across the Sahel, across parts of the MDR. You're seeing a moisture surge right here. That's something to pay attention to right here. And what that's telling me is we're going to be seeing less Sahara dust than what we would typically see, like especially compared to what we saw last year, particularly in July and early August. We're looking at less Sahara dust as we see those moisture returns going for it right here. And these are all factors that you're going to want to take a look at, and these are all factors that we are going to continue to pay attention to here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. If you want to come hang out with us, help us out, or you want to ask us questions, be sure to join the Storms United Discord server. The link to that is in the end screen. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.